Hello everyone! Hi there, I hope you're all well. Good to see you. So this is my last assembly this term because tomorrow is an inset day, so today is the last assembly. And it's something that's going to be, it's about something that's going to be happening in the location, in the countryside of Britain, maybe even in your garden. Something that's going to be happening over the next couple of weeks. It normally starts around about this time of year. It's a very exciting time of the year, and I know that some of you have been learning about this in your classes already. So anyway, to get started, we're going to think about the RBOTs. So we've got R1, which is reflectiveness, thinking about the way we learn. R2 is resilience, being able to lock on to our learning and not give up. R3 is resourcefulness, being able to learn in different ways and know how to make links between our learning. And R4, the bottom one, is reciprocity, is being able to work really well on your own and also being able to work really well with others. Okay, so that's all about learning, and we're going to focus today on RBOT 3. So let me get that up, and I'm going to shrink myself down just so I'm out of the way a bit. So RBOT 3 is being ready, willing and able to learn in different ways. And we have asked you, since lots of you have been at home, to learn in different ways, because lots of you are in front of a screen learning, which is, you might spend time in front of a screen normally, but not normally having assemblies or seeing your teacher and doing your learning that way. So there's something that's a bit different about your learning at the moment. And what I want to think about today is about making links. About finding relevance, meaning and similarities and differences. So thinking about what you're learning and how it might link to something you already know or something that you've learned before. Okay, anyway, I'm going to give you a bit of a lesson now, a bit of learning about something that I love. One of I just love these things. And here they are. Some people don't like them at all, but here they are. And these are amphibians. And there's different sorts of amphibians, and they're split into three main groups, and you can see some pictures of those three main groups. You have the frogs and toads at the top. So frogs and toads, they are actually in the same group, even though they look a little bit different. One's got warty skin and one's got slimy skin. Frogs and toads are pretty much the same. And then you have newts and salamanders. In this country, we only have what we call newts. We don't have any salamanders, even though they are in fact the same thing again. And the last one, which is quite an unusual creature, they're called Sicilians. And they tend to be found in the really hot places in the world, in the tropics. And we don't have any in this country, obviously, because it's not hot. And they are legless amphibians. They're almost like amphibian snakes. And you find them, they live in water. But they also burrow like earthworms. And you find them, as I say, in the hotter parts of the world. So at this time of year in Britain, what happens is that frogs and toads, not today, it's too cold today, but maybe towards the end of next week when things starts to warm up, the frogs in particular, they're going to start to come out of their hibernation. What they do is in the winter, they hibernate in the bottom of ponds. So they dig themselves into the mud in the ponds. So even if the pond freezes over, the frogs at the bottom and they're okay. Now, they don't need to breathe oxygen because they slow their heart rate down so much that they don't need that much oxygen. And what oxygen they do need, they can absorb through their skin. Amazing creatures. So what they're starting to do, the frogs, what they will be starting to do when it gets a little bit warmer, is they'll be coming out of their hibernation. And the first thing they do when they come out of hibernation is they spawn. So they lay their eggs. I've got an amazing photo. This was taken in Glasgow. Here it is. Look at this. So this is in a pond in a city, and you can see in the background the tower blocks. And this is a male and a female frog holding each other. They do something which is called amplexus, where they hold each other. And in the background, you can see the eggs, the spawn that they've laid. And that's what the frogs and toads will be doing over the next few weeks. The frogs in particular. The frogs are always out first. And they will be laying big clumps of frog spawn. And then this spawn, as lots of you will know in reception, because you've done some work on life cycles, these grow into, they hatch into tadpoles, and those tadpoles turn into froglets, and then those froglets climb out of the water and hop off. And in a few years, they'll be doing the same as those grown-ups there. They'll be laying eggs of their own. They'll be spawning on their own. So the book I want to share with you today is a book. It's by a man called Benji Davies. And he is a writer and he's an illustrator, so he draws the pictures. And this is the book. It's a lovely book. I might have shared it with you before when you were in school. And it's called Tad. Sometimes the biggest stories have the smallest beginnings. And it's about a frog. So let's have a look at this lovely book. So there's the first page. I'm going to get myself out of the way because I feel like I'm in a pond. I'm at the bottom of a pond with the frog spawn. And you can see the frog spawn there in the background. Tad by Benji Davies. And there you can see the main character in the story, Tad. I'm just going to get my pointer so I can point it out. There he is, Tad. A little tadpole. Not yet a tadpole yet, he's still a spawn. Tad was a frog. Well, that's not quite true. She was almost a frog. Tad was small, smaller than her tad brothers, smaller than her tad sisters. Tad was the smallest, almost a frog, in the whole wide pond. She was so small that she had to wiggle her tail twice as fast as any of the others just to keep up. "Keep up," they would say, "or Big Blub will get you." So these are tadpoles, and there they are, you can see them. Tad had never seen Big Blub. Big Blub, they say, was a great, big, nasty fish. Big Blub swam in the deep, dark, murky part of the pond. He was as old as the mud, they said. He would wait till the sun went in, till all the pond was grey, then he would glide out from the dark patches and... Oh! No, Tad did not want to know. She decided to not believe in the Big Blub. But just in case, she kept to the shallow, sunny parts of the pond, where Big Blub could not get her. And when the sun went in, she carefully hid behind the rocks and plants, in the hope that Big Blub would not find her. Day by day, the tadpoles grew. They grew back legs, then front legs. They grew web toes. Their legs grew longer. Their legs grew stronger. Stretching their 4 legs as wide as they could, they felt like they wanted to climb out of the pond. They rushed into the shallow water quicker than you or I can blink. Swoosh, wiggle, swish, swish, wiggle, swoosh. Their tails got smaller and smaller until they no longer had tails at all. "We've lost our tails! We've lost our tails!" Eee! They cheered, all except for Tad. Every night they would find a big leaf and curl up together. But as the nights passed, Tad noticed fewer and fewer tadpoles to curl up with. Oh no, where are they going? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Each night Tad counted her tad brothers and tad sisters. 5, 4, 3. Where had they all gone? She didn't like to think. And you can see what she's thinking about. She's thinking about Big Blub. Maybe Big Blub is eating them. They played in the shadows with... Tad played in the shallows with her last tad brother and her last tad sister. "You can't catch us, Big Blub," her last tad sister called out into the shadows. But there were just 2. It seemed there are fewer of us than before, don't you think? Said Tad to her last tad brother. And then there was only 1. But she was strong and she was clever, and she knew all the best hiding places. Big Blub would never catch her. "Oh no, Big Blub!" Tad swam faster than she had ever swam before. Then Tad did something she'd never done before. She swam up and up and up. Big Blub sank back to the bottom of the pond where he belonged amongst the mud and ooze, deep, dark and murky. Tad climbed onto a rock, her big round eyes blinking at the bright sky. It felt good to be out of the water. "I've lost my tail, I've lost my tail," she sang. Tad was a frog. She had a funny feeling, a twist in her belly, spreading out to the 10 ends of her toes. She coiled up like a tight spring and jumped. And you can see there, You can see lots of her tad brothers and sisters. There's one. And they're no longer tad brothers and sisters anymore. They are frogs. Froglets, maybe. All around. I wonder how many of you can spot. And there they are. So when they were in the pond, they went onto a leaf. And when they're out of the pond, they're all curling up in a leaf there. So that's the end of the story. I love this book. Beautiful illustrations. As I said, it's about one of my favourite things, frogs. And it'd be interesting to know if you've made links. If you've made links to what you know already about predators and prey and food chains. I know that some people in Year 6 have been learning about that. You may be thinking about evolution because you might have learnt about that last term. You may be thinking about life cycles because I know in reception you've done some work on animals' life cycles and how that works. You may be thinking about all these things, which is great because that's what learning is all about. And learning in different ways, you find things out in when you're least expecting it from different things. And books are a great way to find things out. So that's the story. And as I say, this is my last assembly this term. Obviously, we'll be back on the 22nd of February, and hopefully the frogs will have started spawning by then. So maybe we'll have an update if there are any frogs, or if you know of any frogs that are in maybe a pond in your garden or a pond near where you live. So have a great break from learning. Make sure you do have a break as well, and make sure you don't spend too much time on your screens. I know that it's difficult at the moment because there's not a great deal to do. But hopefully the sun might come out next week and we'll be able to get outside and enjoy ourselves. Always remember, though, a great thing to do is to read a book. Sit down and read a book. The great thing about books is, as well, is even if you've read it before, reading it again can be just as good. I often, not just in personally, I like to read books again. I have certain books that I love and I read again and again. But I often end up reading books to people that I've read before. So I read them to my children, and I've read some stories I've read so many times. The Gruffalo, for example, mouse took a stroll in the deep dark wood. A fox saw the mouse, and the mouse looked good. I know it off by heart. I've read it so many times. But that's a good thing to do, though, is to read it to somebody else. And if you haven't got a younger brother or sister or an older brother or sister to read to, then maybe a dog, Teddy. Just read to anybody. It's a great thing to do, and it feels nice, and it helps you think about different things as well, and make links with your learning. Anyway, I'm going to stop rabbiting on. I hope that you're all well, and hopefully school will be open relatively soon, and we can all get back together and back to a little bit of normality. Wouldn't that be great? Anyway, take lots of care and see you soon. Bye. 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 Bye.